What's the most you've seen someone change from high school to your class reunion? Hi Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will turn off your computer now. I went to school with Jared Fogle, the subway guy. He was definitely not having sex with teenagers when he was in high school. I wonder if prisons will treat his burns from this. Was laying tile at a guy's house who I went to school with, but was a year under me. His brother was in my older brother's grade. His older brother was the biggest drug guy I knew. He did any kind of drug he could since about 6th grade. He never graduated. His younger brother did and was not into drugs. I asked him what his older brother was doing now and he told me he owned his own insurance company. Could not believe it. A few years later I hear the younger brother had been left by his wife and he chased her down at a drive-thru and shot at her car and she sped away, causing him to run after her, shooting. He was eventually killed by the police. Better trademark this story before a movie executive reads it. Starting Ben and Casey Affleck. The nicest, most soft-spoken guy died yesterday from a heroin overdose. One guy, legitimate child prodigy, genius type, in a super competitive STEM program. As in, most of us are in 11th grade doing calculus and he's about 12, having skipped a grade or two and then is sitting in on a higher grade just for math class. His parents had a professor from a major university tutoring him after school, pushing him to do math competitions, the whole 9 yards. I don't think he got much of a say in it. It was what they'd been having him do since the age of 3 or so. His senior year, he'd had enough. He dropped out of the STEM magnet program and switched to the creative and performing arts magnet program. His physique was very much a computer programmer's more than a dancer, and he had zero experience with song and dance. He graduates, goes to a small private West Coast school, instead of Harvard, Yale like his parents had planned, majors in musical theater. After a year or two, that changes to journalism. Takes a leave of absence from school 2 years in to convert to Mormonism. Did I mention his parents were hardcore atheists? Even though Mormons don't make converts do mission trips, he did a mission trip to India for longer than the usual mission. The last I'd heard from him, he was married and having lots of LDS kids somewhere on the West Coast. He's a fantastic guy, but if you'd asked me in 11th grade where I thought he'd end up, it would not have been anywhere close to failed musical theater major and Mormon missionary. This is a process known as the reverse Reddit. Super smart guy at my HS got into meth and more and ended up dropping out. He was a total crackhead for several years and then became a born-again Cowboy Christian. Goddamn Cowboy Christians. Riding my ass in traffic, driving like an aggravated ALA, all the while with their cowboy kneeling to the cross and already forgiven stickers on their jacked up trucks. Yeah, I live in Texas. Not to mention impatient as frick. Source: ex-waiter in Texas. They're forgiven in the next life. They can be the AOLA they want to be in this life. Not my batchmate, but an upperclassman. I used to go to a public high school where everyone was poor or middle class. Absolutely no rich kids. This is in a province in a third world country, so when I say poor, I mean down and out dirt poor. I made friends with this older guy who I always see on my walk to school. When I ask him where he lived he would always point up to the mountain. I always thought of it as a joke, but when he didn't show up for class after a really bad storm, rumors spread that his family's house in the mountains got destroyed. He stopped school after that and I haven't talked to him since. He finished high school the next year and applied to a prestigious university in the country. He took a finance course, but had to stop a few times because of financial issues. He graduated 6 years later, with honors nonetheless. Now, he is a regional office manager for a bank and he also owns a small travel agency. The scrawny kid from the mountain became a big-time businessman. What country? Philippines. There are at least half a dozen people in my class that have killed themselves or overdosed on drugs. To be honest, I'm amazed everyone in my class of about 350-400 is still alive after almost 3 years. No odds, suicides or accidents yet. A girl I sat next to in homeroom for 11th and 12th grades was always really mousy and quiet. Long brown hair, same jeans and t-shirt every day. At the 5-year reunion, there's this totally hot lady in black, high-heeled boots, dyed blonde hair in a razor cut. It was her. No one could believe it. I was lucky enough to move in the same social circles as she did for a few years and get to know her better. She was always a really cool person, but it was nice to see her come out of her shell. 5-year reunion, so like they just stumble upon each other at the local university campus. Super senior with a 1.1 GPA. At the 10-year he was finishing up a joint MBA, JD at Harvard. Huddle, sounds like me. I walked into being a 5th-year senior with a 1.1. Graduated at a 3.9. Traditional school doesn't really do well for people with undiagnosed disabilities. Honestly, most people were mostly the same, just nicer and more mature. Also some people got fat, but that's to be expected. This has been my experience. I'm fat now. Reunion soon. I'll go to the gym. Tom M. Rowe. Did you eat the rest of that word? This one girl was super smart. In all the advanced placement classes, was on school council and all the smart kid clubs, always picked for any special outings like campus visits and symposiums. She came from a pretty well-off family, successful parents and all. I went back home to visit my parents and she's working at the local subway with track marks on her arms. I really didn't expect that from her. There was a similar girl from my high school. So smart, so hardworking, so kind. Her pursuit of perfect grades sent her to the psych ward. She told her story to the class before graduation. Clarity. Same story, but with multiple people. Our class culture was extremely competitive and it feels like every day there's a new post on Facebook talking about recovery. I'd hope this problem was more isolated than it seems to be. Not a class reunion. We don't have them. But there was a girl in my class who was really quiet. Shy, always dressed super conservatively, never came close to breaking the rules, a bit of a Hermione type. I bumped into her, having not seen her for like 7 years and she was totally different, covered in tattoos and piercings and dreadlocks. Almost didn't recognize her. Sort of similar thing. There was a girl in our class whose family was Iranian. Not sure if she was born here or there. In high school, she dressed very matronly, like she was 17 going on 45. Blouses, business skirts, middle-aged lady haircuts. Flash forward to our 20-year reunion. I didn't even recognize her. Boob job, skimpy dress, tan, very high heels, working as a bartender. Guess she had a girls gone wild experience after leaving home. Mia Khalifa. She's Lebanese, not Persian. Too bad. I was hoping she was still into dudes. My high school boyfriend was the captain of the soccer team, held the record for the 2-mile run, was on student council and was voted best character. He dropped out of 3 different colleges, law school, and the ESL program and career he was trying to teach. He's also done time in prison for sexual assault against a minor. Sad face. I will always wonder what happened. Peaked in high school. Peaked. I haven't even begun to peak. I am the golden god. I am a 5-star man. In high school this kid was the typical super athlete, alpha male who had a mean streak, but always seemed to direct it towards the openly gay students. Came back to our 10-year reunion and was about as gay as could be. When I was talking to him he came out after we graduated and he started college where he met his husband. He actually went as far as to apologize to everyone he bullied. He was homophobic, but now he's just homophilic. I stayed in my hometown till I was 24, 6 years ago and 4 years since I visited. So most of the changes I've seen have been through Facebook. The biggest change would be in a girl, let's call her Sarah, who I'd been friends with since we were 9. She was always odd, but that eccentricity turned into full-on madness. She got heavily into drugs and by 16 she got into ex-work and a whole array of other horrors. Anyhow, around 22 she had a kid and totally turned her life around. Before I moved I bumped into her and we hung out a few times. One night we got drunk at our local and I told her how proud I was of her and I said, "I can't even imagine what you went through, And she grabbed my hand and the pain in her eyes was like shards of glass into my heart. She just said, "You have no idea. No idea, And that was enough to indicate the level of trauma she experienced. She's 30 now and is still eccentric as hell, but is a devoted mum and a successful local photographer and special event planner. Major kudos to her. This made me smile. You go, Sarah. Keep kicking ass out there. Let's go her." A girl I went to school with was always picked on because her parents were poor. Her mother worked in a minimum wage job and her dad didn't work at all. To be honest, I don't know how people even noticed her enough to bully her, as she was always quiet and came in and out of class unnoticed. At school she always, I hate to say this, took the bullying and never once ever complained. That's the best way I can describe it. I remember her as always of average looks and intelligence while we were at school and very skinny. Once we left school everybody went their separate ways. Last year she surfaced on Facebook with a family and also a degree from Cambridge University. It turns out she had joined the army and went through officer training at Sandhurst and is a captain in the Army Air Corps. She has pictures of her tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. The quiet girl who got bullied was a very intelligent, tough person who I suppose we all wanted to be ourselves. It was nice to see. Whoa, this blew up overnight. Thanks for the gold, kind strangers. I love an Aladdin ending. Okay Reddit guys, subscribe now, or I will turn off your computer now.